You go this way, you go this way. Stay on him. You two take out the Necropolis Knights. I'm gonna throw a meteor. Meteor seems like a little overkill, but just knock him over. Alright, so falls the king, and his army will soon join him. There we go. Oh, I love when undead armies just obliterate. It's so nice. Oh yeah, there's a poll up. What poll is this? Favorite ground-based monster? Ooh, I've got just enough time to vote. Oop. Do I know much about 40K? I know bits and pieces. I would not consider myself a lore master on 40K, but I know enough to hold conversations. And I try and keep up with, like, generally what's going on in the setting. I try and be aware. I'm really looking forward to the upcoming event that's going to be taking us into what looks like 10th edition. Level 20, we can get Honored Elder. Oh yeah, feels so good. Ooh, Arcane Vessel. Yep, I will take free fireballs. Thank you. You can get Honored Elder. Very nice. Do I have a favorite 40K faction? Yes, Tyranids. I am a big Tyranid fan. I think Tyranids are by far the most exciting part of 40K. Which is a shame because they don't really get that much screen time compared to a lot of other factions. Because they kind of have the same problem that old school Lizardmen had, in that because they don't really have much of a personality, they tend to not get much time in, like, the limelight. You know, they tend to get pushed to the background because it's like, oh well, surely the Tyranids can't be the focus of a story because, you know, they're Tyranids. They don't think in a traditional way. You know, they're not like humans. They're different. I've always, to me, okay, this, granted, this is gonna sound very judgmental, but I do mean it from a loving place. I enjoy many aspects of Black Library, but I have always been very strongly of the opinion that Black Library has kind of a weak set of authors when it comes to writing, like, inhuman perspectives. There are a lot of really talented fantasy authors and sci-fi authors out in the world who have shown that it is perfectly possible and indeed can be masterfully done to create wonderful stories and narratives using inhuman characters, using creatures and empires and forces that we cannot truly relate to, but still exploring that. And that is one of the biggest weaknesses of Games Workshop, is that Games Workshop and the Black Library don't seem to understand that at all. Like, they seem to operate under the assumption that it is impossible to have, like, a Tyranid story or a Lizardman story or any of this other stuff, because they think, oh well, that's not a human, so the only way we can write those characters is by having a human character fight. Like, they can only feature as the baddie. And that's it. Like, we're not really able to explore them. And I don't think that's true. I think that's a very, very silly, limited, narrow-minded authorial way of looking at their universe. But unfortunately, like, you know, so a lot of the time we only get like half of, or maybe even just a quarter of the stories we deserve, because Games Workshop is not willing to, you know, kind of take a leap and really try something different and interesting. Like they're starting to get better about it. Like in AOS, there were actually some pretty nice stories from the Seraphon perspective that I thought were pretty cool. But you know, it's still got a ways to go. All right, chat. The Tomb King invasion has been defeated. It was at great cost, but we are victorious. Praise be. Praise be. Okay, give me that other point in Scarred Veteran. You give me a point in Thick Skinned. When do I get a second on? 22? Okay. Give me a cheaper... Oh, give me Missile Resistance. That'll be good. They do like to pew-pew my boys. They'll be back. Yes, I know. Okay, let's get ourselves a Skink Chief who can run around assassinating people. Plus 5% campaign movement. Perfect. Here's a little Skink Chief assassin. What do you want, elf? Military access? Well, I am desperately in need of allies, so fine. Oh, Scarbrand's dead. Which is a shame. I would have liked to have killed him and gotten his trait, but can't be everywhere at once. Do I have this trait yet? No, I don't. Okay. Oops, forgot about you. Do Tomb Kings reproduce? No. There is a theoretical maximum to them, but it's the entirety of the dead of Nehekara over the course of hundreds, if not thousands of years, which is just an obscene amount of people. Like, that is so many goddamn people. It's like, you know, imagine walking into, you know, such a massive nation that was once an absolute superpower of the world, and is able to call upon all of those who have ever lived in their nation to like resume fighting. Just that, you know, that would be so that would be just mind-bogglingly huge army. And that is what you're dealing with when you fight against the Tomb Kings, and they're really going all in. Yay! Tic-tac-toe is being nice to me. That being said, Lich Priests of the Tomb Kings are able to basically use their sorcery to repair the bones of their dead and, like, you know, bring them back and stuff. And they also have the ability, if their, like, bodies go beyond, are shattered beyond repair, even by magical means, they will have the ability to still inter them inside of other things as needed. For instance, interring them inside of, say, a sepulchral stalker, or a necropolis knight, or a tomb scorpion, depending on, like, who it is that's dead, because the different kinds of dead are interred inside different things. Ah, good job, boy. Making Pappy proud. I think I want to build a Shrine of the Old Ones here. What is Tomb King society like? It depends on the city and the which king is, like, awake and in charge of that particular part of whatever area you're in. Because some of the kings are insane, like they've gone mad and they believe they're still alive. So they, or at least they refuse to acknowledge that they're dead. So they still go through all the motions as if they were alive. And just, you know, studiously ignore the fact that they are absolutely a corpse, unquestionably a corpse. But beyond that, what most Tomb Kings do, the vast majority of them are kept asleep at any given time. They're not allowed to be awake due to a decree by Cetra, because the last time that too many Tomb Kings were all awake at the same time, it led to a massive amount of civil war as all the Tomb Kings started fighting each other because they all believed that they were the greatest and that they should be in charge. But when you have, like, just a seemingly infinite number of characters being like, I am, you know, I'm the best king, I should be in charge, obviously you're going to start to run into problems. Cetra handled that by basically kicking the shit out of all of them and forcing most of them to go back to sleep. And they typically, like, rotate who's awake and who's in charge and stuff, or will awaken a specific Tomb King to handle a particular issue. But most of the Tomb Kings, what most of the Tomb Kings will do when they're awake and about depends a lot on, like, their personality and what it is they're wanting to accomplish. Some of them just enjoy, like, fighting particular types of foes. Like, they might fight amongst each other, challenge others to battles. They might enjoy some of the things that they can still enjoy as the dead. You know, obviously they can't enjoy taste anymore, for instance. And most Tomb Kings, some Tomb Kings have a sense of smell, but not all of them do. But, like, some of them will still hold court and enjoy, like, listening to music or doing other things like that. But a lot of the big stuff is that most of them are mostly focused on restoring their realms. So they'll send out armies, or they'll send out laborers who are in charge of, like, digging through the sands and digging through the dunes to dig up ancient fortifications or statues or outposts that have been lost to time because they got buried beneath the dunes. So they'll be excavating those. Some of them will be observing various rituals and various religious ceremonies in order to observe and give thanks or worship to the Nehekaran gods. Some will be more focused on just marching out and waging conquest against the other races of the world, you know, taking out their vengeance on the living, or focusing on recapturing territory that's been lost. Because Nehekara used to be way bigger than it is now, especially when Cetra was in charge. When Cetra was alive and was king, Cetra controlled all of the territory between, like, around Nehekara, pretty much to the coast of Araby, all the way up through the Badlands to like Blackfire Pass and most of the Border Princes. He also controlled a lot of the a lot of the Badlands until it touched the World's Edge Mountains, and he controlled all the way south until his lands touched the jungles of the Southlands. So like Cetra very heavily encourages and spends a lot of his own time encouraging the various kings to focus on recapturing territory that belong to Nehekara and then continuing to expand beyond that. But a lot of Tomb Kings, when they wake up, will be chasing after like relics that have been lost that belong to like their families, and other such stuff like that. But it depends a lot on the king you're dealing with. All the different kings have different things that they're working on or care more about than other things. You know, if you have a king whose whole thing is that he's say there's a Tomb King of Qatar, and his whole thing is that he really fucking hates the kings over at Liberus, and there, especially if he has one particular rival that maybe he had in life or something like that, he's gonna spend a lot of his time focusing on killing or like getting to fight that one king, like declaring challenges and doing all sorts of silly things that he anything and everything he can do to just be like, generally speaking, a huge pain in the ass to that particular opponent. Oh wow, my Pawhawk Sentinels are getting absolutely decimated. Go, just kill everything, go. There's your opening, Kroq-Gar. Go get him. Take the Scarvet with you. Cavalry! We're gonna go this flank. Heck, you coward. Push for strength. You go this way, you go this way, you go this way. No, I lied. You go that way. Oh, y'all really like Vargeis? I do love good Vargeis. Vargeis are a pretty sexy unit, to be frank. I don't think they get as much love as they deserve. They're actually really good now, too. Let's see if I can blow this priest up real quick. Close. Kill the kitty. The king is dead. Long live the king. Blitz Priest is dead. Oh, no, he's not. Did you just die? Jesus. All right, now he's dead. All right. Another Tomb King army destroyed. My sister walked by and saw me playing Darktide. She says that looks like a very violent game. I would say that's a fair comment. I would say that's fair. Some kings have human subjects. They did in the old lore. In the modern lore, they do not. They went so in the modern interpretations of the lore, they leaned more heavily into the idea that the Tomb Kings are very jealous of the living, and they despise the living. So they very actively like lash out against them, and are, you know, they're envious of the fact that they're able to still do all the things that living people can do. And so they're extremely not nice and cruel and malicious towards living people. So they're not willing to take living slaves. That being said, it used to be a very big aspect of the city of what city was it? It was I think it was Numis. Yeah. The city of Numis used to have a pretty sizable like human population. I don't think I can't remember if they were allowed inside the city or not. Okay, so I don't get any bonuses to Saurus infantry. No, okay. So with Kroq-Gar, I think I want to focus more on pull one riders once I get up and running, but I am going to be using a lot of Saurus, at least for a hot minute. That being said, I would very much like to get good at ambushing sooner rather than later. Yay, we got an Immortal Skink Priest, which is fantastic. Why don't you get... Let's get a cheaper Chain Lightning right now. I think I completely forgot about my wizard that last fight, now that I think about it. I want you to get Enforcer. And we're going to fall back to Teotihuacan to heal up, because we got another army coming in. But I did unlock a lot of cool new toys. Spirit of Tepoch actually would not be bad, because he does give us banishment. Oh, another success. Good for you, Skink Chief. Making Daddy proud. Why would any Dark Elf worship Slaanesh when they all know all he wants is those sweet, juicy elf souls? So the vast majority of elves do not worship Slaanesh. The overwhelming majority of elves do not worship Slaanesh because they know it's a stupid idea. However, there are some among the elves who basically think they can pull one over on him. They think that they are smart and clever enough that by playing their hands very carefully, they can out-manipulate Slaanesh. So they know how badly he wants them. So Morathi does this, obviously. They work very hard to try and work that in their favor. You know, why bother? You know, if when you die, there's a very high especially for dark elves. Dark elves do not have like soul security, so to speak. They just kind of assume that they're not going to die, which is, you know, pretty stupid and brazen, to be honest. So because of that, they operate under the idea that when they die, more than likely Slaanesh is going to get them anyway. So why bother? So some of them, the more risky among them, see it from the specter or from the position of why bother trying to avoid what is unavoidable. You know, why try and avoid the unavoidable? Why not embrace it and attempt to use it to manipulate, to gain power? You know, if Slaanesh wants your soul so bad, then surely you can bargain with him. But, you know, obviously it's a dangerous game.
Would you care for a demonstration of the power of fire and metal? We are in accordance.
Protector of the realm.
Well, they're not doing it from a position of despair or desperation, which would be more Nurgle. They're doing it from a perspective of genuinely and deeply believing that they are so clever, so powerful, and so manipulative that they can actually get away with it, which is far more up Slaanesch's sake, or that the pleasure and power that they will acquire from it is more than worth the risk, which that is so Slaaneshi it hurts. Like, you can't get more Slaaneshi than that. Are there elves that have fallen to Nurgle? There's not any that have been noted in the stories, and elves falling to chaos in general is super fucking rare. Like, extremely rare. And it was actually, there only used to really be like one chaos elf that was still considered canon until Total War brought back Marathi's Cult of Pleasure, which reintroduced the Cult of Pleasure having Slaaneshi ties where it used to not have Slaaneshi ties. Oh, well, it originally had Slaaneshi ties, and then when Creative Assembly did this, they did a callback to the older lore where they went back to having Slaaneshi ties. So anyway, so because of all that, yeah. Sorry, that kind of turned into a run-on sentence. It is very, very rare to find an elven worshiper of the dark gods, and I have not heard of an elf that worships the other three powers, but it's not impossible. It could happen. Giga Gogante is good to see you. Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. There is the Wood Elf woman there is the Wood Elf woman in the Orion trilogy who falls to Nurgle. That's very true. Yep. There's also a Dark Elf character from the Malice Darkblade series. Mm-hmm. I will say there are not any particularly large and powerful ones. I thought Kane and Khorne were the same. No. They're very... It may not seem like it, but they're actually quite different. Very little shit. Let me ambush you! I want that Tomb King booty. From a human perspective, there are many human scholars in like the old world that posit that Khorne and Kane are the same, and that the elves are just too stupid to realize that they are different. To the elves, the idea that Khorne and Kane are the same is like the most idiotic suggestion possible. Like, suggesting that to them, they would look at you and be like, how fascinating it must be to live in that silly little mind. Like, how does your mind work to be so unfathomably stupid? What is Kane's full name? Kayla Mincha Kane. Isn't that more of a 40k thing? No. Like, he's in fantasy, he's virtually always just referred to as Kane. It's very, very rare that like the full name comes up, but it does exist in fantasy. Between 40k and fantasy, what would I say is the more, which is universe is darker? Definitely 40k. 40k is way darker than fantasy is. Fantasy at least has a concept of hope. Like, there is a concept that chaos is not all powerful, and that it does actually have the ability to lose. Like, there is a potential possibility for the races of order to unite and actually